Welcome to Sports from the Couch.
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
With your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. It is the 4th of July weekend here in the greatest country in the world, the US of A, and we are here live in the greatest city in the world, Chicago, IL. So to celebrate the Independence Day and to celebrate each and every one of you being such amazing people supporting us here on Sports from the Couch with your host, Mike Mercado, all over the universe. We're on Roku at the Rewind Sports 60. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media. And of course, on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. And it is there that we are doing this episode. It is a mailbag episode. We are taking some questions, and it is going to be a fun edition of the show. Like we've been saying, you can follow us all over the universe. So if you want to see the video version of the podcast, then we are on Roku now, partnering with the amazing people over at the Rewind Sports 60. Of course, on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. You guys can follow us wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Please like, rate, review, and share us there. If you would like to support us, visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. So on today's edition, we have some questions we need to get to. And if you would like to have your question read here on the show, you could go to our email at sportsmercadoairwaves@gmail.com. That's sportsmercadoairwaves@gmail.com. And of course, on social media, I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. You could be interactive with the show on Couch Sports Talk. And of course, the entire network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. I'm also on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. But with that, it is the holiday. I know you got some cold beverages to get to, some grilling to do, and some sports to watch. So let's get right into it. Our first question today is, would you trade Zach Lavine for Ben Simmons? So this is obviously coming off of what was a horrible showing by Ben Simmons in the playoffs and Zach Lavine being named into the USA basketball team. So speaking of Independence Day and 4th of July, shout out to Zach for that. And for a second, I think that's really interesting that Zach got, selected to be part of Team USA, and whether or not it impacts the Chicago Bulls right away in the 2021-2022 season, it always is good to be part of a group of the greatest players in the world, especially in Team USA. It's great to be around Greg Popovich and Coach K and that entire, institute that is Team USA basketball, both on the men and women's side. So whenever you see somebody be able to go and be part of that, top notch, right? Like, it's kind of like what Travis Kelce and George Kittle are doing over at the Tight End University. Obviously, this is the Olympics, and it's the prestige, but this is great for the brand. This is great for the Bulls. This is great for Zach Lavine, and it does so much. So now let's talk about this. You've seen it all over NBA Twitter. Hashtag NBA Twitter. We love you guys. If you're the Bulls, right, why would you make that trade? Dan Patrick says it all the time. Whenever we're doing these trade scenarios, we're always looking at one side of it. We're never seeing the other side of this trade. Like, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody want to make a move like that? And that is the case here. If you're the Bulls, you don't get a Ben Simmons to replace Zach Lavine. You get a Ben Simmons to go alongside a Zach Lavine. That's why you got Nikola Vucevic. That's why you drafted a Patrick Williams. That's why you're hoping to develop a Kobe White and bring in another point guard. Ben Simmons is perfect for a Zach Lavine. He's not perfect to replace him. So there's just that, right? Just the style, the value as a basketball player. The next thing is, if you're the Bulls, why would you make that trade? Why would you do that? You have no need to do everything Zach Lavine does, Ben Simmons can't do. Now, I do think Ben Simmons is the goods. Is he top 15 in the NBA? I don't know. I don't know if he's top 15 in the NBA. Not right now, but I don't know if he's capable of being there. What I do know is he is a top tier point guard. He is a perennial all-star. That's all stuff that you can't take away from him. And that was true before these playoffs. Just crazy things happen. You get the yips, right? Cheers. It's interesting to see how that's all played out. And of course, a lot of it had to do with he played in Philadelphia alongside Joel Embiid. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of, when you're dating within the Kardashian family and you've been, kind of linked to everybody like that, there does become this added pressure to you. So I can see why he might be struggling, or like there's a magnifying glass under him. But if you don't think for 1 second that it's a little weird if it seems like, oh yeah, if you're Philadelphia, you make that trade, there's a reason why. I do think the Sixers do need to really consider changing things up. I think I saw somewhere, it might have been Nick Wright from Fox Sports 1, who mentioned like a Ben Simmons for Kyrie Irving type of thing, which is crazy because that just throws everything out of the loop, right? Like the whole purpose of what all these guys have been doing. But you do need to make a move if you're Philadelphia. And if you're Chicago, you need a point guard. We know all these things. But I think when you're doing these trade machine things, really think along the lines of, why would Portland give up Dame for Ben Simmons? Why would Chicago give up Zach Lavine for Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons is a nice player. He's going to be a really good pickup for somebody. And if he breaks out and if he gets away from that and a change of scenery is good for him, Ben Simmons is going to be a problem. But I don't think you trade Zach Lavine for Ben Simmons. Now, if you find a way to get Ben Simmons alongside Zach here in Chicago or in some crazy universe in Philly, that might be money. That might be magic. But here in Chicago, you don't want no part of that unless it's Ben Simmons and Zach Lavine together. So thank you for the question. And of course, you can bring in your questions over at sports, Mercado Airwaves at gmail.com, on Twitter at Mike M Media, Couch Sports Talk, and Mercado Airwaves. All three of them, we will check it out. Just use the hashtag Sports from the Couch. And of course, if you guys want, we're on Facebook. The video version of this podcast is there, along with on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network, and on Roku, the Rewind Sports 60. Let's move on and sticking with the NBA. Who is the best player in the NBA? So this argument is funny because it's so fluid. Because I think for the longest time, you could just say LeBron, and that's pretty cut and dry. And if you're a fan of Steph, you can make that argument. I think right now, the toughest matchup, the biggest nightmare, a headache for every team in the league, except for the team he plays for, is Kevin Durant. Now, my favorite two players are split. It's between Devin Booker and Giannis. I've been a big mark for both of them. I actually went to a bunch of games for Bulls, Bucks for that reason. And, I've been a Devin Booker stan for a while. It's the fact that now everybody's catching up, which is wonderful. It's about time, and we're seeing that boy get to the NBA Finals and is becoming a man in this league, and is great, right? Like, we like seeing that. But is he the best player in the NBA? I don't think so. I don't know if Giannis is. I think Giannis may be the most intriguing player in the NBA because of all the things he can do and some of the things he can't do. But it's because of that where the story kind of just revolves around Kevin Durant. KD is the best player in the NBA. When he wants to, he's defensively a nightmare to play against. When he's on and healthy, he cannot be guarded. Period. That's the statement. Now, LeBron, at his peak, just like Kobe, just like KD, just like Jordan, in their own ways, you couldn't really guard the man. That's just fact. He was his own roadblock. It was whether or not he was going to sink the shot, whether you got in the way just enough to upset him just a little bit enough, right? That's the kind of guys they were. But like right now, you can't mess with KD. He's just going to do what he does. LeBron's kind of taking that step back just because of the years, right? The man's 36, but probably more like 42 because of all the miles on those ankles, on those feet, on those knees, those hamstrings, the calves. It is what it is. I don't think it's Kawhi. Again, I love all these guys. These are all killers. But the best player in the NBA, night in, night out, biggest problem, biggest nightmare, walking bucket can stop you defensively. There's some dudes who check all those out. But the guy, to me, who's the unicorn of all unicorns, is Kevin Durant. That could change in a few years. We know how fluid it is. And we know that there are also times in the NBA where there are guys who just have a stranglehold on that. It might be Luka. We don't know that. He could be the guy. Could be Trae Young. There's a bunch of killers. Mitchell, like we know this. We know this. I'm not speaking about the guys who aren't in the league yet. But right now, the best player in the NBA, in a league full of really nice players, it's Kevin Durant, in my opinion. Let me know yours, though. Here we go. The next question here on this 4th of July weekend mailbag edition of Sports from the Couch. Which rookie QB landed in the best spot for their future? Thank you for the question. And I know this was a subject matter on ESPN's Greeny, Mike Greenberg, his radio show. I don't know if it was radio show or his TV show. Cheers. Nice cool water in this hot Mercado Airwaves studios. A steamy day here in Chicago on 4th of July weekend. So, yeah, Greeny was talking about this, and I think his argument ended up being that he believes that Zach Wilson, obviously Trey Lance, seems to be the universal answer. The only question I have about Trey Lance is San Francisco hasn't had the greatest of records. They haven't been this contender. They have a lot of talent. People like Shanahan, right? Like, there's a lot of reasons that people tell you to like them, but are there a lot of results in which you should like them? Just something to put in the memory bank. You let me know. So Trey Lance, I think that's a nice fit. That makes I think he has the most potential for bust. I don't think anybody in NFL national media want to tell you that, but Trey Lance has the most potential for bust. So he thinks it's Zach Wilson. Now look I'm not going to crap on the kid. I know there's a lot of people who do because of the college he went to. For me, and a lot of people, because of how he looks like a 12-year-old, and the prototypical white quarterback from BYU. Like, I get it. It's easy. But I do think he has talent. He's got an arm. My big problem with Zach Wilson and that assessment that Greenberg was saying, because we'll get into who he thinks he's better off than, is Zach Wilson's going to the Jets. I don't care how many regime changes you have. I don't care how much hype you have for this guy coming in from San Francisco. I'm glad that they hired him. I'm interested to see what it is. But you're still the New York Jets. There's a history behind there. So then when your statement is Zach Wilson's a better position than a kid like Justin Fields, which granted, I'll give you, I'm a Chicago fan. We did the reaction live right here on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. I get it. But, and when I say this, mind you, I know and I recognize that the Chicago Bears are not a winning franchise. They're a marquee franchise. They're a charter franchise. They're original franchise. But they're not a winning franchise. And I don't want anybody to tell me otherwise. I've been on this planet for 31 years. I've seen a White Sox World Series, 3 Stanley Cups. I was alive for 6 NBA titles and the greatest player of all time. I remember like 2 of them. I've seen the Chicago Cubs win a World Series. Don't tell me about the Bears being winning in 1985. That is not a winning franchise. But it's not a disgraceful franchise. They aren't the bottom of the barrel of how they're ran. They do a lot of bad things, but nobody makes fun of the Bears. Nobody ridicules the Bears unless you're a Packers fan, which you rightfully should do over the years. But think about that. So to say that Justin Fields is in a worse position long-term because of the coaching and GM, but Zach Wilson isn't? Yo, if you don't think that in 2 seasons, it's way more possible that the Jets just overhaul their entire front office and coaching staff, you haven't been paying attention because that's kind of what they do. So I think Chicago, there's a big possibility Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy are gone. Justin Fields is going to have a new regime. I'm not saying that any of these guys are going to work out, especially speaking of Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. But if you're telling me whose future do I have more faith in, not just in their skill, but everything that's ahead of them, I'm going with Justin Fields. Now, the underdog in that entire thing, or the dark horse, is Mac Jones. Because you're going to New England, got Bill Belichick. It takes a certain guy. It's going to take Bill Belichick hitting on his recruiting and his scouting. And it's going to take that Tua doesn't hit. It's going to take that Zach Wilson doesn't take. And again, now you got to go against Bill Belichick. So, there's that. I don't think Justin Fields has to worry about that. It's interesting. Josh Allen, we'll see. We'll see about Josh Allen. So Mac Jones has a chance. There's a legitimate chance there. Look, Trevor Lawrence may be the goods. I don't know. Again, Jacksonville, long-term wise. You think the Bears aren't a winning franchise, and we were giving them crap about them, which I think rightfully so we should. But the Jets and the Jaguars. I mean, look, the Jets are bad, but they're not Jags bad. So we'll see how it works out for Trevor Lawrence. And there's a bunch of other rookie quarterbacks that we're missing and that we haven't talked about. But that was really interesting to me. The Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, and Mac Jones thing. Because I honestly think the last two guys of Mac Jones and Justin Fields have really good chances of being successful just purely on the franchise they landed on. Justin Fields obviously can make the argument, well, Chicago's never had a good QB. Hey, they're due then, right? They're due. But that just said it's different. This was the right move. It may not work out, but it was, unlike other ones, this was the right move at the right time with the right kid. So I think it's interesting, but I want to, let me know. I mean, there's Kelly Munn and a bunch of guys that we missed that went later on in the draft, but let me know what you guys think. Who has the best situation, not just for this season, but for the long term of their career, in which franchise they were drafted in? I want to know your thoughts when it comes to this QB crew that we saw in this past draft. Thanks for the question, though. It has been a few days. Any new comments or thoughts on Scottie Pippen? Yeah, we talked about that one, right? That Scottie had some thoughts, but it's been a whirlwind. I think at the end of the day for Scottie, and I've mentioned this a lot of times before, I think Scottie's hurting. The man's been through a lot. Reality television, a documentary that showed his blemishes, social media. It's a lot. And it's a lot to think that he's held a lot of in, because I heard somebody say it perfectly, and it really registered with me, that imagine being one of the top 50 players of all time. Imagine being a multiple time All-Star, defensive All-Team, NBA champion 6 different times, U.S. Olympic gold winner, part of the dream team, and nobody talks about you. Nobody gives you the same type of respect because you played alongside the greatest player of all time in his sport, especially at the time, and arguably, other than Muhammad Ali, the most influential athlete of all time. I mean, look at there. I wish I had that luck, right? A lot of money. But think about it. I mean, they even talk about that, his money worth, dumbest contract of all time. They did that in one of the most watched documentaries in The Last Dance. This man lost a child, his oldest kid. Like, he's going through a lot. Do I condone him, making racial claims? Like, and really fast about that. I don't know Phil Jackson. I don't know Scottie Pippen. Could Scottie be full of crap? Sure. Can Phil Jackson be a racist? Okay. But the only thing that I believe is an accusation like that is such a heavy one. It's such an important one that needs to come out if it's true. And the facts that Scottie gave in those particular interviews in GQ and with Dan Patrick weren't the most heaviest, right? They didn't have the most weight to them. Doesn't mean he might not be right. He might not be speaking his truth. But it just muddies this whole thing up. And there is this weird cultish fandom of the 90s Bulls, especially in the city of Chicago. I love them, and I get it. They were the Beatles. But you're messing with people's nostalgia. And you're messing with people's hearts. And for Book and for some bourbon. And I hope for Scottie it works out. And I hope that he's going to be okay. And I hope the legacy of the Bulls is okay. But it's not good. And it sucks that it seems like he's hurting, man. And we know that he's one of the greatest of all time. An entire generation just looks at him as a Robin. But the man was a killer. But it's also fair to criticize him because he's had moments that he could have been great, that he could have taken the team on his shoulders, that he could have taken the next step, and he didn't do it for one reason or another. And that's just sports. But it's hard, man. I could see the pain in Scottie. So hopefully he just gets better, and hopefully he makes some money then, some real money off of this tour, and it was worth it for him. And our final question on this 4th of July weekend mailbag edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves with their host, Mike Mercado. We are on our video version of the podcast on Roku.com, Roku app, all over the universe on Roku, on the Rewind Sports 60 channel. Shout out to Jerry Rios. We're also on YouTube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network and wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. And you could get your question read by sending us an email over at sportsmercadoairwaves@gmail.com. That's sportsmercadoairwaves@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. You can be interactive with the entire network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. If you want to talk sports, we're on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. And the final question is a doozy. Speaking of the USA, thoughts on U.S. track and field star Sha'Carri Richardson's positive THC test. So she was actually on Good Morning America or one of these morning shows, and she talked about taking responsibility. And look, I understand both sides of this. I guess all three sides. That the side that says she shouldn't be smoking, the side that says they shouldn't be testing her, and the side says you got to just take responsibility. Look, I know, but again, it's in 2021. Come here. I know a lot of people want to make it divisive and say that all things can't be right or there's shades of gray. There is. There's a shade of gray in this. Look, it sucks that she's not going to be able to shine and that the Olympics find a way to not, take care of the U.S. gymnastics girls when there's a predator around them, but they conquer down on this. And the IOC and all, it's all dirty. When they're the most dirtiest sports ever. Well, let's pay attention to this moment. Should they have tested her? Probably not. We should not probably be part of this testing. It's not an enhancer. Should she know better? Yeah. And it sucks that there's such big consequences for it. As if she was taking steroids, as if she was, hitting somebody with a lead pipe on their shin. Like, I get it. If you're going 40 on the 35, you're only going 5 over, but you can still get a ticket. It's a dumb rule. It's a rule. Maybe good for other things, but it's a rule and you gotta abide by them. Should it be tested? Is it a big deal? No and no. Should she probably be able to race? Yes. Is it a bummer? Absolutely. But it is what it is. The rules are what the rules are. And these super athletes, and she is one of the baddest people on the planet. They take such good care of their bodies. They know everything that they put into their temples. Look, man, it's legal in 19 states. It's basically, it's going to be federal legal by the time you listen to this at some point in the future. I think so. I could be 100% wrong. Who knows, right? At some point. Would look back at this and just say, make sure you know the rules. Take care of everything you can. And whether something seems dumb or not, don't let it cost you. Just don't let it cost you. And if you're her, take advantage of it. Get a sponsor deal with some weed company. Make some money with that ganja. I'm with it. And I think she's going to be part of a relay or whatever, so go win a gold medal too. And the IOC and the U.S. Olympic team changed the rules, and pay more attention to predators. But how about this also? Don't be so judgmental. If you're really going hard on her, don't be so judgmental. First of all, none of us will ever even imagine what she's accomplished when it comes to athletics. And second of all, I know your diets, most of yours diets and vices, and let's not be judgy. Let's just enjoy life. It's 4th of July. It's America. Let's be awesome. But with that, guys, I think that'll do it for us on this edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I am done. It's funny to me because there is so much greatness in this world and there's so many things to enjoy, and you can smoke cigarettes and you can have an alcoholic beverage, but God forbid you have a little bit of weed and you can't get a gold medal. But you know what? It is what it is, and hopefully she makes some money with that. Make sure you guys send us your questions over on sportsmercadoairwaves@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media. Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. Be interactive with the show on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. And, of course, check us out on Roku, on the Rewind Sports 60 channel. See the video version of the podcast also on youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves. Like us, rate, review, and share us wherever you get your favorite podcasts on all major podcast platforms at Mercado Airwaves. Visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves if you would like to see your ad right here or become a producer of the network. That's patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Facebook.com/Mercado Airwaves. Check out our swag at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Enjoy all the games. Please enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Be safe, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.